When we look at constitutional design, the difference between China and South Africa is striking, and it goes far beyond procedure. China treats its constitution as a durable, almost untouchable foundation. Core principles are rarely altered, and when they are, changes are deliberate. They are tightly controlled and focused on reinforcing long-term governance rather than responding to short-term political pressures. This approach establishes a stable framework that governs not just legal decisions, but the expectations and behaviors of institutions and officials and even citizens. Because the rules are consistent over decades, long-term planning becomes possible. Policies can be executed with confidence, and the risk of legal uncertainty disrupting governance is minimized. South Africa, by contrast, frequently amends its constitution to respond to evolving social, economic, and political pressures. Each amendment reflects democratic responsiveness, yet each also carries consequences like legal ambiguity, interpretive challenges, and political contestation. Policies can be slowed as actors anticipate future changes, and institutional actors are often forced to hedge decisions against political reinterpretations. The contrast illustrates a deeper governance philosophy. Permanence creates predictability and institutional cohesion, while frequent amendments, though flexible, invite uncertainty and incremental inefficiency. This difference in approach has tangible implications for governance outcomes. A constitution that rarely changes, like China's, allows a government to pursue long-term development strategies with clarity and legitimacy. Investors, local authorities, and institutions understand the boundaries of power, reducing friction and fostering coordinated action. South Africa's model, by contrast, places flexibility over stability. While this allows for corrective justice and adaptation, it also means that every legislative effort or reform initiative exists in a shifting legal landscape, subject to reinterpretation and dispute. The cause and effect is clear. Stability enables decisive action and coherent policy execution, whereas frequent changes, even when well-intentioned, introduce inefficiency, unpredictability, and legal contestation. The lesson is not that flexibility is wrong, it's that a permanent constitutional foundation can serve as a reliable anchor, giving governments and citizens the clarity they need to act effectively while still allowing adaptation through ordinary legislation rather than structural upheaval. In governance, predictability isn't just desirable, it's a force multiplier for effectiveness and legitimacy. One of the most striking aspects of China's constitutional approach is the way it enables long-term governance. Because the constitution is treated as a durable foundation, policies on infrastructure, economic reform, and social development can be planned and executed with decades in mind. Officials and institutions understand the rules of the game, and they operate with a certainty that the legal framework won't shift unexpectedly. That predictability is not just a technical advantage, it shapes how decisions are made and resources are allocated. When the constitution is stable, long-term investments, whether in transportation networks, urban planning, or social programs, can be pursued without fear that the legal environment will suddenly invalidate the strategy. It also reduces the opportunity for political actors to exploit legal ambiguities for short-term gain. Litigation over constitutional interpretation is limited, and authority is more coherent because everyone is operating under the same consistent rules. The Constitution then becomes a tool for planning, coordination, and legitimacy, rather than a moving target that must be constantly negotiated. South Africa, on the other hand, experiences the opposite effect. Frequent amendments, often responding to immediate social pressures or political opportunities, create a system where actors cannot fully rely on stability. Government officials, legislators, and even private stakeholders anticipate future legal shifts, hedging their decisions to account for potential reinterpretations. Every major policy initiative exists in a shifting legal and political landscape, which slows implementation and weakens overall governance coherence. Long-term infrastructure projects, economic reforms, or land redistribution programs face delays because The rules themselves are not fixed, and every change opens the door to litigation or political contestation. In practice, the country gains flexibility but sacrifices predictability, making governance more reactive than strategic. The lesson is clear. A permanent, stable constitution does not restrict action. It empowers coherent, forward looking governance, while frequent constitutional tinkering, even when well intentioned, injects uncertainty that slows progress and increases the cost of decision making. Stable constitutional design does more than define legal boundaries. It actively shapes how citizens and institutions interact with government. In China, the permanence of the constitution provides a predictable framework that underpins legitimacy. Even within a highly centralized system, the rules are clear and consistent, which allows both citizens and officials to anticipate continuity. When expectations are aligned with institutional behavior, conflict over the scope of authority diminishes, social compliance increases, and the government can operate without constantly renegotiating the fundamentals of its power. A stable constitutional environment also reduces uncertainty that could otherwise be exploited politically or economically. Institutions know where they stand. Actors plan with confidence, and legitimacy is reinforced because the rules themselves are durable. The cause and effect is pretty straightforward. When the foundational law is predictable, governance can focus on execution, not crisis management, and public confidence grows. South Africa, in contrast, experiences the consequences of frequent constitutional amendments. Each change triggers legal interpretation, judicial review, and public debate over its implications. While this process reflects democratic responsiveness, it also generates uncertainty about the reach of government power. Policy initiatives can be delayed as actors anticipate future amendments, and institutional actors may hedge decisions rather than act decisively. The legal environment becomes contested, and social trust can erode when expectations are constantly shifting. The result is then slower reform, fragmented authority, and heightened political friction. In practical terms, frequent amendments sacrifice stability and coherence, meaning governance must repeatedly contend with its own legal structure rather than using it as a foundation for growth and reform. Permanence, therefore, is not rigidity, it's a platform for legitimacy, trust, and efficient execution of policy. Every governance model carries trade offs, and constitutional design is no exception. A rigid, permanent constitution can risk obsolescence, leaving gaps when society, technology, or the economy evolves in ways the original framers could not foresee. Policies that were adequate decades ago may no longer address new realities, and without mechanisms for careful adaptation, stagnation may occur. Yet permanence also fosters decisiveness and institutional coherence. When the rules are stable, governments can plan confidently. They can allocate resources strategically and pursue long term objectives without fearing that the legal foundation will suddenly shift. China's approach illustrates this. The Constitution provides a durable anchor that aligns institutional behavior and expectations, allowing authorities to implement large scale infrastructure, social programs, and economic reforms with predictable legal certainty. Stability, in this sense, is a force multiplier, enabling policy execution while maintaining legitimacy. South Africa, in contrast, benefits from constitutional flexibility. The country can adjust property rights, affirmative action measures, and land reform policies in response to emerging challenges, which reflects responsiveness and democratic accountability. But this flexibility comes at the cost of consistency. Every amendment introduces uncertainty, requiring actors to constantly reassess legal interpretations, which slows decision making and can fragment authority. China sacrifices this short term flexibility but gains long term planning capacity and institutional certainty. The lesson is that governance is strengthened when the constitution serves as a durable foundation, while adaptation occurs through legislative, regulatory, or local mechanisms. This balance preserves the structural integrity of the legal framework while allowing society to respond to evolving challenges. If South Africa were to aim for greater constitutional permanence, the potential impact on governance would be significant. A stable constitution provides a reliable framework within which policies can be executed confidently, and long term projects from infrastructure to social programs can proceed without the constant threat of legal reinterpretation. Frequent amendments, while democratic in intent and responsive to societal demands, create inefficiencies and unpredictability that slow decision making and dilute institutional coherence. Every new amendment invites debate, litigation, and reassessment of authority, which forces actors to hedge decisions rather than act decisively. By contrast, a durable constitutional framework gives institutions a clear foundation. It reduces political maneuvering over legal ambiguities and aligns expectations between citizens, government officials, and private stakeholders. The cause and effect here is simple. Predictability in law translates to efficiency in governance, to credibility in administration, and stability in society. Constitutional permanence does not imply rigidity or an inability to adapt. Rather, it establishes a foundation strong enough to guide institutions, to protect rights, and foster development, while allowing deliberate adaptation through legislation, policy, or local regulations. South Africa can learn that stability in its constitution is a tool, not an obstacle. It provides the legal certainty needed for coherent reform and long-term planning, while preserving democratic responsiveness. The key lesson is that permanence and flexibility are not mutually exclusive. Permanence creates a platform from which reform can be executed thoughtfully and sustainably, ensuring that governance is not reactive, but strategically capable and institutionally resilient.